Hello, everyone. This is one of my authors chats of the week, and it's a little earlier than I've been doing it lately, so it'll be fun to see who is out and about at this time in the afternoon. And as I let this platform kind of start notifying everybody that I am here, I'll keep an eye out for my co-host. And as always, we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. And this week, I've been switching up my focuses away from writing new chapters. I'm still writing new chapters, but there are other projects that need my attention all based on deadlines. So I've been kind of scrambling around doing those things, which some of them are not as entertaining to hear about as others. But either way, things are progressing. And for those who are not aware, I am part of an anthology called Secrets, and the actually full title is The Compendium of Secrets, and it's put on by the Indie Author Connect group. So there are 14 authors, with myself included, writing everything from fantasy, sci-fi, horror, a little bit again of all that, and put into this wonderful anthology, which all the proceeds that are going to go from that are going to be put into an author fund to help authors who are falling on hard times and or just starting out in their author careers and need a little bit of help funding some of those upfront costs like editors and book covers. But okay, I'm going to send this invite out. I've been rambling too long, and we'll get things rocking and rolling in just a moment. Hopefully. Let's see if you see the invite in your messages. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. Haha. Hello, hello.
Howdy.
Great. I can hear you, but I can't see you. And there's a way to invert the camera. And I'm trying to. Aha! You did it. Fancy.
How's it going?
I'm good. I'm glad this actually worked out well for both of us. And welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, dude. I'm so excited. My name's TS and I write comics. I'm legally obligated to say it every time I appear.
Hey, don't worry. I'm gonna let you do your introductions, but I also say I do like the fact that you have a QR code just floating on your. That's really.
I was trying to find something to attach my microphone to, and the only thing I could find was a business card. So I'm always advertising, you know?
That's a smart way. I was like, I've never seen that, and I'm kind of wondering why people don't do that because that's a great little thing just to have. But if you've never listened to any of my lives before, I'll go through my little spiel. Anybody who jumps in the chat and kind of makes either bookish comments or questions, I try to make note of that because if this platform is nice, I'll try to repurpose this on my YouTube channel at a later date. You will see. And outside of that, it's pretty conversational. We're just going to let you introduce yourself since you're my co-host today and talk about what you write, what you create, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, my name's TS, and I write comics like The Digger, which is basically what if Indiana Jones hunted short round. I have that spiel down pat. I've been doing indie comics for about 5 years, and this was the first comic book that I've gotten into shops, widely distributed, the first time I've gotten bigger paychecks for writing comics, that kind of thing. But I've been doing the indie comic stuff, like I said, here on TikTok for about 5 years, and only recently have I started to have success. Before that, I wrote novels and short stories. I was in anthologies and magazines and stuff, but this is the first time I've really hit my stride, basically.
Yeah, I love that. So, okay, let me ask you. When it comes to comics, there's multiple components of it. There's people who write the stories. There are the people who draw and create the beautiful visuals. Some people are talented and do both. So, what aspect of creating these comics do you do?
I mean, I mostly just write comic books. I've always been a writer, and that's where I wanted to do my focus. I have illustrated some comic books, and I do illustrate comic book covers on the side because it pays way better, if I'm going to be honest. Uh, so, like, that's just kind of how it goes. I used to only do writing, and I needed a variant cover for a publisher recently. And I never drew anything before, but I couldn't afford to pay a variant artist. I can only afford to pay for the one book. And so I had to learn how to draw. And so I did one of our variant covers, and now I get pretty regular work as a variant cover artist. So I mostly write comic books, and that's what I prefer to do, but doing the illustrations pays better.
I actually sat in one time because I went to a writing conference, and one of the sessions I sat in on was the idea of creating comics, be it adapting books you already have into the comic kind of format, or just truly writing a new comic and all that goes into it. And I didn't realize, like, I never thought of it, but there's so much that you pay attention to and you incorporate when you write a comic versus things that when you write other types of literature you don't include, because you don't need the descriptions because you have the visuals. You have the little voice bubbles to kind of say instead of he said, she said. So for you starting to write in that style, was that a big change, or was that something because you're used to reading comics that just came naturally to you?
I mean, it did kind of come naturally. I've always been a big comic book fan. And honestly, it was a little bit of finding my home because I think I had a harder time writing novels and short stories because really what I was supposed to be doing was writing comic books. And it was more about learning the format because when you're writing a novel, you're writing for your entire audience. When you're writing a comic book script, you're writing for your teammates. You're writing for whoever's going to illustrate it. You're writing for your editor, your letterer, because that's not really the final product that they're going to see. It's a lot like being a playwright where you're writing the stage action, you're writing the dialogue, and you're labeling it for the whoever's going to perform it. In this case, you're writing it, so your letterer knows who the dialogue bubble is supposed to be attached to. But once you learn that format, to me, it came so naturally because I love comic books. And I think that I'm a much better storyteller when it comes to comic books because my prose, I think, were rough. And I think that's probably why I've gotten more work as a comic book writer than I ever did when I was a novelist.
I mean, everybody has like their weak spots and their strong parts, and part of that is that fact that you train yourself and you learn, you get better the more you do it. On the other hand, sometimes people's brains work better in certain medium than others, so it's nice for people to find what works for them. And so for
Right.
you, obviously, that is indie comics, which is fascinating. Like, how did you even figure out how to begin in the sense of you write your story, but how do you find, as you said, the people who do the text and the people who do the illustrations and put it all together? And so tell me a little bit about that, because that's, I'm
So
curious.
I mean, like finding a team is it's tough. If you've ever seen a heist movie, it's about putting that team together.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as walking to a bar, pointing, going, "Hey, man, are you in?" And they go, "You son of a gun, I'm in." Like that's not really how it works. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of hunting people down, and it's a lot of making friends because once you're in it, it comes a little bit more naturally. I just got hired for a gig. And they didn't have an artist attached, so I could message all of my artist friends and say, "Hey, come on board." But the first time you do it, it's a lot of just searching the internet for people
Mhm.
with art styles that you appreciate. And the other angle is people who are willing to work with you. Because if you're a nobody, like I was starting out and still kind of am, you don't have that clout. When you say, "Hey, I have the script for you," they don't care. That's not really how it works. It's about finding the people who are willing to work with you
Mhm.
as you're starting out. And there are amazing sites like ArtStation and Behance and DeviantArt and even just social media like Instagram and TikTok. And you just search through them. And the hard part that a lot of people skip over and go, "I can't find an artist for my comic book," is because you have to message a lot of people and they
Yeah.
will mostly say no or nothing. You get ghosted a lot because they're used to people reaching out saying that they're the next Stan Lee. And you
Mhm.
have to get used to that rejection because they don't know you from Adam. And if you're willing to reach out to strangers, you can find a lot of amazing people to work with.
So here's another thing I'm just curious, because I know, writing again on the novel side of things, one of the way when people want to help, or a lot of authors who are trying to figure out how to cover some of those upfront costs and or do special editions or anything, going through fundraising platforms and stuff like that. How do you raise the funds you need to produce a comic? Because from anybody who I've ever heard that's even closely in that radius is like, that's not a cheap thing to do. That is a lot of work for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I mean, comic books is expensive. I tell people all the time that being good at creating comic books is so secondary. You have to be good at doing so many other things,
Yeah.
not, unimportant, which is raising the funds for it. I would say on average it costs between $3,000 and $5,000 to make an indie comic book that looks good enough that people will want to buy it.
Mhm.
And raising that kind of money is not easy to do. There's tons of different crowdfunding sites that you do it with, and a lot of it is getting on social media the same way that you
Yeah.
do and the same way that a lot of indie authors do, and trying to garner an audience before you go to those platforms, so you're not just launching it on there. If you have good enough art, if you have a good enough pitch, maybe you can still do it that way. But a lot of it is building up that demand beforehand and going to those crowdfunding sites. Now, luckily, I've been able to pivot a little bit away from that and go with the traditional publishing route, which is much easier. They help foot
Mhm.
the bill. I make enough money off my comic books now that the next ones are paid for from just selling the
Nice.
comic books, and that's tough to do, and most people can't do that.
Yeah.
In the past, I've done the really normal, boring Midwest thing, and I just ask for investors. I go to the people that I know who
Mhm.
have money, go to the biggest building in town, and go, "Who wants to help me make art?" And you find like patrons, like the old school days. And I was surprised at how many people actually wanted to do that.
Mhm.
And I found a few. I guess you would call them whales if you're talking about like supporters through Patreon and Kickstarter and all those platforms who wanted to do it on a larger scale. So I had launched a production company called Professional Entropy. And some of the people who just wanted to back my comic books at the beginning became investors in an actual company that we have a production house for now. And
Wow.
that makes it a lot easier because I just want to write my silly stories. I'm not really good at doing crowdfunding and doing
Yeah.
all of the advertising and everything like that. But a lot of it is just attrition. You know, you just need to outlast the other people doing it a lot of times and show that you're willing to get better at it. And eventually some of that money will come. I say some because I still fund a lot of this out of pocket because like you have to. And most of it is done on spec the same way you would do, you know, a novel or a movie script. I fund a lot of comic books hoping a publisher will pick them
Mhm.
up and then give me some of that money back. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
So, do you go to any face-to-face events like conventions and everything? So I feel like that is like one of those prime places to get in front of new potential readers is going to cons of various sorts. But what do you do to get in front of the right readership outside of social media blasting?
Right, I was gonna say social media blasting is the main one, right? Like you've probably heard my catchphrase if you at all in the indie comic book space because I'm annoying because I post every day. But I also do some of the like the in person stuff. I do cons. I have like 3 coming up here in March and April.
Guys.
But the problem is a lot of those events, especially for comics, are focused more on the celebrity side, right?
Fair.
I just did Motor City Comic Con here in Michigan, and that's like our big one here. And there were people that were there for comics, but most people were there because the Screamcast was there. Like, not a lot of
Mm,
people are coming for comic books when Matthew Lillard's around the corner, which is awesome. It still gets people in the door and people still come and buy comic books, but it's not quite the same. I feel like I garner like way more of an audience being on social media than I do going to those events. Those events are cool for meeting current fans and already
mhm.
existing fans and networking with other creators. I do make a lot of friends at cons, and I do get to meet a lot of my heroes at cons, which is cool. I don't know if you know comic books at all, but I got to cry in front of Mark Waid, who is the creator of Kingdom Come and a lot of other comic books.
Absolutely.
Probably not a good day for him. It was a great day for me. But you get to do stuff like that. I feel like sometimes I come away with some new fans, but a lot of times I meet the current ones that have seen me on TikTok and want to get something
Mhm.
signed.
Well, I think that's just a fun thing for fandoms is to be able to finally meet the person they see in some kind of virtual space and finally
Right.
see them in like a three-dimensional space and be like, you do exist. That's so neat. Can you sign this? Can you tell me this? Can we talk? You know, people do like that. But yeah, I was going to say, it does make sense that going online and just talking through the socials, that's probably one of the better ways for you to spread the word of comics. But let's go back, since I'm getting way ahead of myself. So, for the comics that you have written and are working on, which one is, I'm assuming you've had multiple projects, so which one's your favorite? I know it's a terrible thing to ask. And, or do you have a favorite character that you've been able to create?
I don't know if I have a favorite out of any of them. I think a lot of it is I fall in love with every character that I write because you kind of have to. I love that people have resonated with the Digger. Like I like that did well enough on social media. That's how I got the gig. Social
Mm-hmm.
media really liked it and blew it up. Helped me get it to a publisher. They saw it through TikTok and helped me get it out there. So if I had to pick a favorite, it probably would be the Digger and the Kid, the 2 main characters from that book, because they got me not just paid, but they got me opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Like I get to talk to publishers now on a regular basis, when before they would just ignore my email. I don't know this TS guy, who cares? And now people know me as the Digger guy. Like they know me from shops. I get to talk to shops now. So I think it's easy to say they're my favorite because they've extended my comic book career by years at least, because it's all runway based. There's only so much time where you can invest in your art without payback if you have to put money in. I would create forever for free if I could. Sadly, my kids eat every day. I don't know why they do that. They're always growing into new shoes. So like you have to think of it in those cases, and the Digger has allowed me to make comic books for at least the next few years. So they're probably going to be my favorite.
That's fantastic. And, there are so many people who are working for their goal, which is to try to be able to financially support themselves on whatever their craft is, be it physical art, books, comic books, poetry, whatever it is. We're all trying to, get to that goal. At least a lot of us are. That's like the great thing when you get the check in the mail and then it can pay your bills.
Yeah, being able to pay your bills with art is like magical. Like I remember the first time I got to pay the phone bill. Like I couldn't afford rent at the time, but I could afford the phone bill with some of my comic book money, and that was a game changer. Not because like that's the most important thing. It's just that you do need to survive. You do need to eat. You have to put your own oxygen mask on first. I would love to make art indefinitely for anybody who wants it. And if you message me, I'm going to be honest with you, I'll probably send you a book. Like if you can't afford to buy one, no hard feelings, let me know. I'll hook you up. But being able to get paid to make your art isn't necessarily the goal because we're all money hungry or greedy. It's because we need to be able to eat, and we would love to make more art. And it's easier to do when you have money in your pocket than when you're begging people to let you make it just because most of those gatekeepers won't let you make it just because. It turns out they need to see that it makes money, sadly.
Yeah, and that's that kind of catch-22 thing. I know that is hard because talking from someone in the publishing side of things, when you're indie, there's a number of people that always kind of dream of what if it would be nice if you make, you get the right number of following, you sell the right number of copies, and you get noticed that way. That does happen. It's very few and far between. And then there's other people who are the ones banging on doors and going through the querying process and doing the submissions and everything, trying to get picked up if they want to go trad. So, I mean, everybody is trying, and sometimes routes somewhat maybe a little easier than others, but none of them are easy. So
no, it's all different skills. I talk about that a lot. People thought when I was trying to get away from crowdfunding that like I thought that indie comics were like shameful or something, and it was just that I was really bad at raising funds. Like I'm not good at doing like the Kickstarter of it all. I'm not good at crowdfunding. I'm better in my opinion at writing comic books, and going traditional publishing, while it's its own treadmill and it's really difficult to do, I have preferred it because they handle a lot of that aspect. I still have to do all of the marketing, but at least I know that it'll get to shops, and I can tell you, no matter how much more money I made off crowdfunding, which I did, I've sold way more copies of my books being in shops just for the small amount of time that I have been than the entire 5 years combined of doing it through the internet and being indie. I sold more copies of The Digger now, even just with issue 1, than I have my entire collection of comic books up until that point. And I've done 20 or so that have actually been published. So more people know my name in the last 6 months than had the entire time I was doing indie comics. And so I think to me, that's just a little bit more valuable than me going, hey, can you please give me $4? I would love it if you wanted to buy it, because I'm so bad at it. And I think I just come off as really sad when I'm asking for money on the internet.
Yeah, there is a trick to it. And yeah, you don't want to be like, oh, whoa, me, please help. On the other hand, you want to be excited, but you also don't want to be like, take this thing that I spent all this time on. And
people don't need another middle-aged white dude going, please make my dreams come true. Like that's tough, like I look like everybody else who's making comic books. That's a tough one to go, please help me over all these other amazing indie people who are trying to make their dreams come true. So having a publisher get to do that is much easier.
Yeah, I completely can understand that. So what was it about comics that made you decide and fall in love with that medium?
I mean, I think a lot of it was being a young reader and comic books being my gateway into reading right next to video games. Because I think for a lot of people that are my age, I'm 32, Harry Potter was the big one. And I was
Yeah.
given Harry Potter for a birthday. And I was like, this stinks. I'm not a fan of this. Is this what books are? I don't like books because Harry Potter stinks. And no offense to Harry Potter fans or Harry Potter. I've read it since. I've watched the movies. I enjoyed it. But at the time, I was
Yeah.
just like,
Big
I guess
book.
I don't like books.
Yeah.
And my parents got me comic books, and I was like, oh no, this is what I like, this is my into it. And I've just resonated with it ever since. And every time I thought I was coming out of comic books, probably because I didn't like superheroes as much in certain points of
Mhm.
my life, there was a different genre that launched, because comic books is a medium, it's not just, capes and tights. And I
Yeah.
would find something new to become obsessed with, and it's grown with me over the years. So it was just a match made in heaven from, childhood.
Yeah, I get that. And I think I was a little bit the opposite where I always loved books, but comic books, my mind immediately went to superheroes, which
Mhm.
at the time they were okay. And like I saw the movies and the few movies that were out there at the time before Marvel took over, kind of thing. But it just I didn't really necessarily feel the compelled to go pick up a DC comic or something like that. And I didn't realize that there was a lot more out there. I had no idea about manga. I had no idea about graphic novels and some of the darker, serious, more gritty stuff. Which honestly, that would probably be perfect for me. But
And there's
yeah.
so much good stuff out there other than capes and tights, and I think people don't realize that. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Michigan. There wasn't any comic book stores, so I couldn't even get my hands on the capes and tights of it all. I got
Mm.
Archie Double Digest and fell in love with Archie and the Gang and Jughead.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, like, all of my first comic books weren't superhero comics. From there, it was like Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that. So finding out that there was more out there seemed so natural to me. But there are still people today that I hand a comic book to, and they're like, "There's no superheroes in it. I don't understand." So it's not surprising at all. That's most people's journey through comic books.
Hmm. So, what inspired the Digger? Like, what was it about? Like, how did you come across create this concept that was going to become your first comic book series?
Sure. So I mean, first comic book series, strong words. First successful one, I will say.
Ah, okay, fair, fair, fair. I get
But
that.
I mean, there's two answers. There's the academic one, which is I don't like that we champion some of these characters. Like I love Indiana Jones, and I will never disparage those movies. They're great. They're a big inspiration for this book. But I think that there is a way to eat our vegetables and realize that white academia caused a lot of problems when it comes to this stuff, and a lot of these
Hmm.
artifacts need to be repatriated and go to places where they belong. And we need to talk about how archaeology was mostly grave robbers and thieves. And so there is that aspect. The bigger aspect was looking back and having a hard time getting comic books at publishers and getting their attention. I worked backwards from a phrase that I knew could sell comic books, could sell to a movie company if they wanted to option it, could sell to an artist and grab their attention. And I wrote, "What if Indiana Jones hunted short round?" And that sentence made a lot of sense to a lot of people very quickly. And I knew that it could sell books. And from there, working backwards, I got Sam Goodwin on board, the co-creator and artist. He said he wanted something pulpy and Mesoamerican, so that sentence was born. I knew he would say yes to that. I knew that a comic book publisher would say yes to that, and it was up to me when I got everybody on board to then write a good story around it. And that's
Hmm.
where I could flex my prowess on after the capitalistic sense was made, when I was like, well, see, look, this phrase will make us money. And then I had to go write a good story around it. So like really, like, it was born from, I couldn't get anyone to buy Tokyo Fire, which was like my cyberpunk funny action manga that I had written and I had a really good time doing. And Sky Hawkins was the creator on that, and she has some amazing art. And we couldn't get a publisher interested. And before that, I wrote a book called Hellion and Bash, which was a superhero comic book, which apparently no comic book publisher wanted a superhero comic from a nobody like me. But it was a really heartfelt story about a kid basically, it's Batman abusing Robin and nobody's stepping up because everyone's afraid to fight Batman. So Catwoman takes this kid on the run, and they all have to go on the run from the superhero community. And that was a tough sell too. So I had to figure out one that would sell, that wouldn't be a tough
Hmm.
sell, one that would be an easy sell because I knew I could write it. no matter what it was, if I could get them to say yes to it. And sadly, a lot of working in comics, at least, was getting through some of those gatekeepers, getting through those
Yeah.
gates, and then going from there. So, like I said, there's some vegetables hidden in there. There's a real like artistic merit, but a lot of it was the capitalistic idea of what would a comic book publisher buy from me.
Well, I mean that does make sense. And when you're writing books, there are like almost two wheelhouses. Like, do you write for yourself and create, a story true to you first, and then try to figure out how to market it, which
Right.
makes marketing traditionally a little harder to do. On the other hand, do you come from it, approach it as a marketing mindset first, and be like, do I have that catchphrase? Do I have my pitch? Do I know this is something that the market already wants, and then write to market in order to kind of almost guarantee that if you can then write the story, you have a market waiting for you. So I can see it, especially when it comes to comics and graphic novels and everything like that. You really need to like get into the right space so you can reach the right readers, and building a team, because that one is definitely not a solo act. That one is more of a team thing than any other media that I can think of that deals with some form of text.
Yeah, I mean, like it's all team related. I mean, once you're a bigger name in comic books, writers tend to eclipse the artist, which is really unfair, and it's tough to see sometimes when people say, "Oh, I want X book." X is usually the writer's name, and that's tough because it's always a team. Unless you're a cartoonist and you're doing everything yourself, it's always a team. Game. But when it comes to the indie stuff, writers are not a commodity. We are not something that
Mm-mm.
matters to anybody. It's all in the artwork. So finding a good collaborator, finding an artist that you gel with, is really important. And Sam Goodwin isn't just the artist on the project; he's also the letterer, but he's also the co-creator. Again, like I said, the book came from him saying, "I want to draw this," and I wrote it for him. And that's the only way I could get people to work with me. I could pitch everybody my magnum opus and go, "Here, I have this amazing comic book script, draw it for me." And most people would say no, because who am I?
Mhm.
Why would they want to draw my script? They can get the same page rate from somewhere else and have more fun. If anything, a bigger page rate. So a lot of what I've done in my career so far is just write the things that I know that my team wants to create, whether that's the publisher, the editors, the artists, the letterers, and doing my best to write what they want, and then going from there. Maybe one day I'll get a project that's my dream project and I have this
Yeah.
amazing script. But if I could give any advice to people who want to break into comic books, that's the best way I can say to do it, because sadly, your ideas as a writer and your skill as a writer does not matter at the beginning. You still have to be able to be like writing a really good script. You still have to be good at that job. Don't get me wrong. But
Mhm.
you have to make sure that other people around you want to create that stuff, because you don't have any clout. You don't have any legs to stand on as a writer, because there's a lot of us. And there's a lot of people already working in comic books that are very good who do need more gigs. And so if they can get those people who have already done it before, who are proven to be good at it and have a large audience, they don't need new people. So, like, you have to do whatever you can to show them that you're good at it. And usually that isn't making your dreams come true, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, actually, my husband and I were talking about this just recently about when you talk about actors, and it's the same thing for there. It's like when you're starting out, you kind of take what you can get. It's
Right.
very rare unless you really have like some swing with some friend or something, but you're starting off taking what you can get. And unfortunately, some people do get typecasted and then they're kind of stuck. Other
Sure.
people can like finally like claw their way out and build and build. And maybe if they're the upper echelon, can be able to then choose and pick what roles they want to be the ones that they really are passionate about versus doing what you need to do in order to get.
I think a lot of people who get into the arts, they see that it is unfair. They see how much it is a pay to play industry, how much it's not about making your dreams come true, it's about making other people money. And because it's unfair, they push back heavily and then they don't make it that far. And I hate to say be a tool or to sell out or anything like that, but playing ball with other people trying to create art will get you further than I think a lot of people see. I talk to a lot of young creators, writers, artists who go, "Well, it's not my dream project, so I don't want to be a part of it."
Yeah.
Not understanding that you're gonna have to make a lot of stuff that you're not a big fan of
Mm-hmm.
at first in order to get to the point where you can make your dream projects. And getting the practice is needed. I'm glad that I got a lot of these gigs before I was trying to write something I was so passionate about that's been living in my head, because I don't think it would be as good. And I think every project I write is better than the last. So if I was writing my magnum opus now, it'd probably stink, man. Like I'm glad that I've had to go and make other stuff first before I could get my dream projects out there. Because if people would have said yes to some of my scripts, I don't think that it would have been as impressive. And if I would have pitched
Mhm.
Sam some of those projects, he would have said no, and then I'd be nowhere. In fact, he did say no. Like the first 10 projects I pitched him, he said, no, these are terrible. Try again. And that's how we landed on making The Digger. Luckily, he let me pitch him again.
No, I mean, we all have to improve, and that's the thing is, I can only speak from like the authordom, where it's like everybody wants their books to be the greatest thing. I get it. And so you write your first book, and you're hoping it's going to be the greatest thing in the world, right? But most authors don't start with one. And then, so I always remind people gently that it's like, well, think about this. We always want to continue to be better and improve. We don't want our first one to be the best, or else that's pretty unfortunate when you're trying to make this a career. So inherently, you're going to start out with something that by the end of your career, you're going to look back and be like, oh, yeah, I did write those things, right? Or I did produce that, or I did create that. But that's all part of the process, and it doesn't mean your first or earlier projects are terrible. Sometimes it may be, but not always. But you don't want it to. You shouldn't always approach it saying it is going to be your best thing ever. It
And
may be the best now,
right.
and you want to be very proud of it.
Exactly. I think a lot of people have that approach because they haven't done a ton creatively, at least professionally. So they have one
Mhm.
idea and they go, well, this is the only idea I've ever had, so it's got to be precious. And then once you start doing it more often, whether you're doing it for a living or just creating more period, you see, oh, that idea isn't as precious. I can do this again. I am
Mhm.
capable of writing another story, of drawing another picture, and it is going to be better next time. And I think that just comes with, doing enough stuff where you build that thicker skin and you get better at it as you go, and recognizing that you're getting better at it as you go.
Yeah, and I do agree. I see in the comments mentioning a level of practical is needed when approaching, the whole creative
Right.
space, and it's true. It is true. We do have to kind of approach it with a little level of practical, because again, there's that there is a line and it ebbs and flows, but like to create what you want and brings you joy, and also approaching it in a way that you can market it, you can make sales, you can continue on, especially for those who want to make this a career versus just purely something you do as more or less a hobby. Now, one of my other things is, when I was thinking about what you were saying is everything currently and what you're excited about, where do you want to go from here? Like, what are your, like, some of your goals? Like, these are some of the things I want to achieve in the coming years.
I mean, my goals are all really lofty, and I try not to talk about them too often because it does sound delusional. But I want to play with everybody's
I
toys.
love delusional
I want
goals.
to get to the top. I want to go work with Marvel and DC, and then do
Yes.
creator own stuff until I croak. I would love to be in comic books forever is my big goal. One of my main inspirations and the person I try to model my career off of is Robert Kirkman. If people don't know him, he created The Walking Dead and Invincible,
Mhm.
and he has this thing called the Kirkman Manifesto that people have attributed to him. He's never said it as a manifesto. We just follow it like it is one. And Kirkman started with indie comic books, and he made ones that would get people's attention. He started with a book called Battle Pope, not because he really wanted to write Battle Pope, but because he knew Battle Pope would get people's attention. If you say I write Battle Pope, people turn and look. And then he paid for that out of pocket as much as he could, got some attention of smaller publishers, got that book into stores. That the books that he got into stores from those smaller publishers then got the bigger publishers interested,
Mhm.
which then got him to Marvel. And he built an audience over at Marvel so then he could go and create his own creator owned books over at Image Comics. And that's really what I want to do. I love writing IPs. I love the challenge of playing with other people's toys. I'm a big nerd. I'm a big fan of everything that you can think of. So I would love and to go do that because I really just want to make comic books forever. And if you go and make, I don't know, like if you go and write comic books over at Marvel, say you get the chance to write Spider-Man, you garner an audience and a reputation that kind of allows you to write whatever you want afterwards. Whether you do a good job or not, you have that name recognition that allows you to kind of write your own destiny. And I would love to do that. If I never got another chance to write another comic book, that's okay, because I've gotten to do it and so few people get to. But I would love to kind of follow that trajectory. But my next job is getting another book made after The Digger. I don't have one yet that's ready to go that a publisher has said yes to. So that's really the big challenge. I get asked this a lot, which is really cool from publishers. They go, well, what are you doing next? What do you want to pitch? And the answer is I have no idea. Whatever they'll say yes to is really the answer. Like I hate to have to look at it like that, but I'm not made of money. I gotta I gotta eat still. So whatever they'll say yes to is what I want to make next. I'm pitching a couple of publishers right now, and I would love to get to Marvel or DC. And Marvel, I know you won't let me write Spider-Man, but let me write Gold Balls. Gold Balls is a random mutant character who literally just creates golden balls. That's his power. They eventually showed that they were eggs, I guess. But let me write Gold Balls. You won't give me Spider-Man, but I'll give you an awesome 4-issue Gold Ball series.
I love that. I love that. But yeah, no, it's there are different paths to success. It's going to be very, very again few and far between that get their dream publisher, get their dream, deal. And sometimes you route differently. I've seen people, start indie, then work to small press, mid press, and work all the way up. Other people kind of go back and forth just depending on what their goal is for their particular project. But yeah, for you, there is that whole get a project that will be picked up and move on to the next one. Hopefully, again, climbing the ladder to the next
Right.
bigger thing. So, how many ideas do you come up with at a time when you're shopping around and pitching to people? Do you like stick with one and do the circuit and then go to another one, or do you like toss a whole bunch of things in the medley?
I mean, as many as possible. I have so many irons in the fire; it's not even funny. But because it's a team, game, because you're trying to develop a team, so many things can go wrong with that. You have an artist who changes their mind, is no longer interested.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one that you can no longer afford to pay. Maybe a publisher is no longer interested in that idea. So I have so many projects that I spin up. And every time I message an artist and they say, I would love to draw X, but I hate drawing Y, I create
Mm-hmm.
10 to 15 pitches for them that meet those criteria, and then I go and write scripts once they say yes. Sometimes when those projects fall apart, say like an artist leaves, I still have those scripts, so I immediately try to find a different artist for that script, and on that hunt you spin up 4 or 5 new projects. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say something around 30 books sitting here that no one have ever seen at various levels of creation, from scripts to full books that you could read right now that I could send you, that I'm pitching around at any one time, because it's a very competitive industry. They
Mm-hmm.
don't need me, and that means you really have to impress them, and you have to impress them at the right time. So I spin up as many as I can, and I don't throw away any of those ideas. You kill your darlings, but you don't bury them. You still
Mm-hmm.
hold on to them. And so I have that master pitch list. I'll take the 10 to 15 that I pitch to an artist, and the ones that they say no to, I don't throw away. I put them on that list, and you'd be surprised how often they come up. I don't know about you if you've ever been in the pitch room, but they'll say, well, what else do you have? They might not like the one that they called
Yeah.
you in there for,
Yeah.
but they'll ask you for something else. And if you have that list, it can really come in handy. So at nauseum. I have millions. I have infinite, and there'll be more. I have a project I'm pitching tomorrow, and I know they're going to say no to all these, but I just need to narrow it down for them. So they're going
Mm-hmm.
to say no to 10 or 15 of these, and I'm going to go spin up another 30.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's part of the process, and it also challenges you to be very creative. So that is also a thing as well. But how long? Let's say someone is interested, and you get the right people aligned to get to the point where you get to write the script. How long does it take you to write a script for a comic book? On one hand, people look at it and it's like, well, there are only so many bits of dialogue. On the other hand, as you were mentioning earlier, you have to at least give cues of like the visuals and where people are.
Sure.
There's more that goes in the writing of it than just the conversation aspect. So, how long does it take you to create
So I
a
would say,
comic?
like, for a single issue of a comic book, like what you would read, like a normal periodical, the single issue, you pick up Spider-Man number 17, right? 20 to 22 pages. I write close to 28 to 32 for a lot of my indie stuff. It takes me about a week from start to finish to get that script ready to hand to an artist, to a letterer. And sometimes there are revisions in there. Sometimes we'll change stuff, but it usually takes about a week to get through that process. And I write full script style. I don't write Marvel style. Marvel style is like, for 4 or 5 pages, Stan would call Kirby and say, 4 or 5 pages, Spider-Man punches this guy, jumps through a window, and then Mary Jane's there gasping. And then they would go and fill that in, and then afterward they'd fill in the dialogue. I write full script so it looks like a play. This thing happens, this person says this, and then you go on to the next page. And a lot of what I do, and making the dialogue sound good, but I try to focus on the pacing of it. So you want to read the next page. Page reveals is something that you get to really control as a comic book writer that you don't get in a novel necessarily, that you don't get out of writing a movie script. You can't really control that pacing that way. Whereas with a comic book, you do. So you're leading up to what you want to get them to turn the next page. And so I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what that page turn is. If you ever write a comic book, or if you read one, just glance through it. Odd pages are on the right and even pages are on the left, which means page turns are even pages, right? So you do this page turn. So it's a lot about just trying to convince that reader to read the next page. And that's where a lot of that focus. And I'll have most of the script done on Tuesday, and I'll be hemming and hawing, trying to figure out what I want to be that splash page. That's a full art page, and the double page spreads for Friday. So like I can work really fast, but there are things that slow it down. And then you'll work with an artist who wants to change something because they have a better idea than you. They usually do. When it comes to like the art, like they know better, and that's their wheelhouse, and you want them to know better, and that's how you make a good book. So sometimes it'll take closer to 2 weeks because we have a lot of changes. I don't work with a lot of editors because I don't work with a lot of larger publishers. The smaller publishers that I work with can't afford another editor. So if I don't hire one myself, then it's usually just a lot of beta readers and hoping that they like it when it ships out to stores. But on occasion, I get some notes, and it goes closer to 2 weeks. But I can write a 22 to 32 page script in about a week. This is the part where if there's anybody listening, I get hired for a gig because I say I work fast. And then and then like graphic novels usually take me about a month.
Wow. That is one of those things that I when you were mentioning it, I do recall from when I was listening to that once seminar about graphic novels, was that you always are trying to make sure you end each page before you flip, on a high note, because you do want that, again, that pull over. And again, for me, I am a person that when I end chapters, I love cliffhangers. Some people hate them, but I do. But that's a big concept, trying to get them to read the next thing and the next thing. So I definitely understand that. I see some comments popping up. One about, Siska from Dragon Con may have a panel in mind from what we were talking about. So there you go, inspiring people. So she also asked, which needs to be done first, dialogue, page, or letters?
I do all of it at once. So I do the direction usually. Like this thing happens, that thing happens, unless it's a really talky scene or talky book, and then I do all the dialogue first. And then I fill in what happens, because a lot of it is just, how do I make this interesting? Like when you're watching an Aaron Sorkin movie and they're doing the walk and talks, that was born because you need to get the characters from point A to point B. The dialogue is really what interested him, and he had to keep it interesting for people watching it. And so a lot of times I'll work backwards from that if there's a lot of dialogue. Everything else, like the letters, is the last thing. So first I write the script, then the pages get drawn, and then the letters come in last. That's my process, and most of my teams. That's a lot of comic books as well. Sometimes that changes. I work with some artists like Sam, who do everything all at once because they do the lettering and the art. So they'll letter the entire book because they kind of see the layouts in their head of what they're going to draw, and then they go back and draw it. So it varies from person to person. The way that I usually go is I write what happens, I write the dialogue next, they draw it, and then the letters come last.
Okay. I like that. And then also she asked, at one point, do you hire beta readers if you're utilizing those in the process?
Yeah, I hire some. Usually, when I hire them, it's usually sensitivity readers and
Mhm.
filling in gaps for research of stuff that I don't understand. So number one, again, so I can be sensitive and not offensive, so that my research is correct. And I usually do that once the script is done. So even before it's fully drawn, I'm sending that out to people to read. And every single person, if you've ever talked to me in real life or online, gets 4 or 5 scripts every month going, hey, would you look at this, like, tell me what you think. Does this stink? Do you like this? Is there anything in here that's glaring? I don't really worry too much editorially. I don't stress too much about that stuff. It's more just give me the vibe. What do you like? I don't worry about hiring people to fix my grammar because I'm going to fix that before it goes to print anyways. Nobody who reads comic books cares where the commas go. I know where they go. They don't care. I've used semicolons and I had a couple of messages going, I don't know what this means. And it hurt me, as somebody who studied English at college. I'm like, that's fair. So I don't stress too much about that stuff. So pretty early on in the process, once I have a solid script, I'll send it to everybody that I can think of who might want to read it, and some people who don't, so I can get a lot of feedback before art's drawn.
That's amazing. I actually am curious, and I don't know again if this would ever work because, again, creating comic books, you're already utilizing and trying to incorporate other people in your project really, really at far earlier stages than someone like me, where it's like cover design is after like
Right.
stage X, Y, and Z. But when you were talking about having all these ideas and you're making these pitches, and then a lot of them just don't go anywhere, have you ever thought of doing something like a Patreon where people would get to pay a few bucks just to see the behind the scenes of some of the ideas or where stages of things made it to, and see the behind the thing, help supporting you, but also gives a little bit of an extra life to some of your ideas? Or do you prefer to sit on them just in case down the line you want to pitch them again?
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I do love the idea of sitting on them because, like I said, I don't bury any of them. Like, I'll use all of these again. Anything that ends up on the cutting room floor will be repurposed at some point. I try to use every part of the proverbial deer, like I want to make sure that these places, because everything that I come up with is something that can be used somewhere else. I don't think I have a ton of bad ideas because I don't think that there are a lot of bad ideas. I think that
Mhm.
they're bad for the project that you're working on. The
Yeah.
other side of it is I would love to repurpose them and put them on a Patreon. Nobody cares about me at that level. I don't have that level of fandom that anyone would pay to
Mhm.
see like my unused ideas, the stuff that nobody wanted was not wanted on purpose usually. So I don't know if I would do that. I sell my scripts sometimes because a lot of people have asked, hey, how do I write a comic book? And they can compare my, comic book scripts to the finished product and then go make their own comics, because that's how I got started. I was reading a lot of other people's
Okay.
scripts. And so that I let people behind the scenes for that. I have a Patreon that I let people go to if they want to toss me some money because they feel bad because they see that I look rough. I promise I just, I dress like a street level magician. I do have a bed and there's a roof above me. So I'm okay. I only lived in a van for a little while. But like I would love to do that stuff. I think that there's a level of practicality, like we talked about, right? I don't have a level of a fan base that could support that, who are
Yep.
interested at that level. If that ever becomes the case, let me know. I will definitely show you everything in between. I have nothing that's so sacred that I wouldn't show you unless it's already in production. So there are some things,
Yeah, fair.
I used to tell everybody every idea that I had because that's what made all of the nice chemicals happen in my brain. But then I didn't write anything. And
Mhm.
I was the guy who had all these ideas and never followed
Yeah.
through on any of them. I stopped doing that because once I had a finished product and showed somebody the thing, it was way more impressive and I had something to show for it. So I don't share a lot of stuff early on, not because I want to be sacred about it, but because it makes sure that I follow through and I'm not just the idea guy saying, wouldn't this be cool? And then I never make anything. So I try not to share too much at that level. I don't announce a lot of projects that aren't done and going to see the light of day,
Mhm.
because I don't want to be that guy who just announces projects and never has a project to actually show you that's finished.
Yeah, and I get that, and there are a lot of people who, in general, have great ideas, but if it just stays an idea, is an idea. There are so many people in the world that have great ideas.
Yeah,
It's,
just go write
are
something,
you able to? Can you? Will you? And are you able to follow through with said idea to make it a reality? And that's That's the
Far more
real trick.
valuable if you can do that. Like when I see like all of the books that you write, and some of my other friends here on TikTok, where I'm like, yeah, see, you have a thing to show for it, and all of our comments are just filled with, hey, I have an idea for a comic book, and the only thing I ever tell them is that sounds awesome, go make it, go write it, because
Mhm.
everyone's got cool ideas, and maybe your idea is cooler than other people's ideas, but it means nothing as an idea, sadly.
Yep.
And I never take anybody's ideas. I have a lot of people who pitch them to me like, here, you can have this. They don't understand that the idea part, that's the fun part, that's the easy part,
Yep.
that's the part that we can do all day. It's going and writing a 200 300 page novel, a full comic book script, getting a team together, having a publisher say yes to it. That's the part that really is the difficult part to actually
Yeah.
do and to finish. The idea part is fun, and
And the
that's not the part
marketing.
I want help with. What'd you say?
I said, and the marketing. Woo!
Listen, anybody who wants to come and market something, come on down. Like you got this. Like make this happen, man.
Oh man, that's so
I
true.
can pay you in bad business cards, and I have some squishy stress toys that you're welcome to have. I have a lot of soda. I drink way too much soda. Pop, as we call it here in the Midwest. You can have some of that, but if you're looking for money, I got nothing.
Oh man. Actually, for people to give you money, where can they get your comics? Like, where are they distributed through that people can be like, ooh, I want that?
Sure, I mean, like right now, the Digger is in every comic book shop that you can think of, unless it's sold out again, which it happens. But still go and ask for it at your local comic book shop because we go through this process of printing, right? Everybody does.
Mhm.
But when a comic book sells out, you can get a second, a third printing. It just requires a lot of other people to be interested. So comic books used to be sold on consignment to a lot of distributors. They would sit there. Then once they sold, everyone got paid, and then the big distributor Diamond went under, and distributors stopped being able to get books on consignment because a lot of publishers lost a lot of money because when Diamond went under, they kept all of that merchandise that didn't sell. So everybody needs to be on board to get another printing of a comic book. So it's not as simple as my
Mhm.
publisher going, people like TS, let's make more of his comic book. They need everybody on board. So if you go to a comic book shop, tell them that you like me, the cut of my jib, you like the Digger, you like Invader Comics, and you can get more. So mostly local comic book shops. I have opened my secret stash of comics because everybody has sold out of them for the most part. So you can get them at my website, which is the link in my bio. I'm at TS Luther everywhere. Can't Be Killed Creations is my website. You're welcome to go there and buy stuff. There's a lot of them on eBay right now selling for way too much. I sell them for the cover price, but if you want to pay a lot for a comic book that I wrote, you can get them on eBay. I saw one, a buddy of mine messaged me. He was like, I just bought it. It was $200. Isn't that cool? And I was like, no, I sell them for $7. Like, that's crazy. It's not worth $200. So
Yeah.
they can do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. Anywho, no,
Yeah, maybe
that
I should
is
start listing them on eBay. Yeah, like listen, let's make some burner accounts. Let's make some cash.
exactly. I was like, there is a market there. There is something JD can do. Anywho, I also see from a little earlier, a comment popped up saying that when the idea transforms into a story, that takes over your thoughts until the story comes out pertaining to the writing process. And yeah, when you have that perfect story that just will not leave you by, especially again if you're writing books or novellas or stuff, or even short stories, that kind of that passionate idea that you just need to let out. Sometimes just do it, write it, make it
Yeah,
happen.
sometimes you just gotta. Like, I love when a story takes over. My I would say my mutant ability is if I can take any idea, I can turn it into something that becomes interesting in my brain. At least I can become a fan of anything if I really sit down and look at it the right way. And that's why I love writing other people's ideas. I love when an artist says, I would love to draw X, Y, or Z. If I can make that happen, I like playing with other people's toys because I love the challenge of turning that idea something that I become obsessed with.
Well, that's great. I love that. Also, the hour is like going to start like speeding. We're pretty much at the point where it's going to start speeding by. You already let us know where we can get or try to get your comic, and so we need to like make sure people request and be very vocal about that. But beyond that, where can people find and follow you? You mentioned you have your website through your link here. Are you on any other platforms outside of the TikTok space? And if so, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on all of the short form video sites: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm sure whatever platform that feeds off Blue Sky. I'm there too. I have a Substack, and I'm at TS Luther everywhere. You can find me wandering in the woods too. Sometimes I'm just out there like Bigfoot. I'm blurry when I'm out there, so again, just like Bigfoot. But I'm out there. If you're in the Midwest, come hang out. I'm going to be at all of the Midwest cons that you can think of. If you're at a Comic-Con over here, I'll probably be there as well. But yeah, I'm at TS Luther anywhere on the internet that you can find people, minus X. I don't do X, but I'm on Blue Sky and TikTok, Instagram, all those places.
So, for your upcoming events, you did mention that you have about 3 in the near future. Which particular events are you going to be at so people can mark their calendars?
Sure, if you're in the Ohio space next weekend, I'm going to be at a con called Space. It's like a zine con over near Columbus. At the end of last weekend of March. I don't know what those dates are. I'm terrible with dates. I write stories, not calendars. And then right, and then in April, I'm going to be at Tulip City Comic Con, which is a small Comic Con in Holland, Michigan. Uh, midway through April, and then at the end of April, I'm going to be at the Great Lakes Comics and Manga Anime Expo, which is in New Baltimore, Michigan. So those are all of my upcoming ones. That's at the end of April. Feel free to come out. I'll be there signing stuff, selling things. I sell a lot of my art prints and my personal art there as well on top of my comic books. So if you want some original pages or cover art, or I do a lot of minions because it's the Midwest, and grandmas will come up to my table and they don't care about my comic books, but they know that yellow guy in the overalls. So I draw a lot of minions at my table to pay for the table, as it were.
That's great. So, do you have, actually, I didn't ask this earlier, I'm shocked. Do you have an example of one of your comics, maybe The Digger, by hand and reach? Because I also say, of all things, I didn't ask the person who has this visual based, ooh, look at that. I love that. Look at that cover.
So like I have several, and I feel bad. I feel like I accepted this interview offer, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally in, and I didn't send you anything to read, so that's on me. Uh,
Okay.
but that's cover A of issue 1. This is cover B of The Digger.
Love
There's
it.
there's many different covers from every single issue. But Sam Goodlin's art, just look up Sam Goodlin. He's on Instagram, and he's all over the internet, but on Instagram, and just get lost in his pages. If you don't like anything that I said, if you're like, this curly headed guy is annoying, his beard is weird, go and check out Sam's art because it is amazing. And I much prefer people talk about him, and his art is worth talking about. It's somewhere between like Jamie Hewlett of the Gorillas and Gendy Tartakovsky from like Samurai Jack and Primal and stuff over on Adult
Mm-hmm.
Swim. It's so good, and he needs to blow up everywhere. He needs to be gigantic because his art is worth checking out alone. Like, yeah, sure, I write a good story in my opinion, but no one's coming for that. Everyone's coming for Sam's art. So go and check that out, and you will get your money's worth. It is so gorgeous. I started writing full page splashes and double page spreads just so we could get more of his art on an entire page in every issue, because that's really what sells the book and what people want to come see.
Well, I think that's kind of a little bit par for the course when it comes to graphic novels and comics, is because, or mangas, it's that visual, kind of like, again, we always hate to say it, people shouldn't judge books by their cover, yes, but we do. You want that visual to hook, and when it comes to such a visual-based medium as a comic or graphic novel or manga, anything like that, you do want to work with someone who is hyper talented in their particular artistry, and so that's fantastic. So yes, definitely shout out for the artists out there. Neither you or I could do what we do without them at different levels.
No, I would have never gotten like the reason why The Digger sold well. Obviously, the little catchphrase was good, but when I handed the first issue to our publisher, Invader Comics, they said yes because Sam's art was amazing. So most of what I try to do as a writer right now, professionally, is get out of his way. So if I can do that for 4 issues and you're entertained, I'm going to get more gigs, and that will in turn get Sam more gigs, and that's really what it's about. Because if you can make your artists happy and impress them, they'll carry you all the way through. So if you're a up and coming comic book writer, just make your artists happy and get out of their way, because people are coming for them, not for you.
So you've mentioned the 4 issues a lot in reference to The Digger. If you,
Sure.
let's say, pitch another comic book idea, is 4 issues standard? I actually don't know. Or is it just variable depending on, the particular comic and series?
Sure. I mean, back in the day, you could pitch anything because, a publisher would publish it. If they liked the idea, they'd keep it going as long as they could. And that's not how it works right now. If you pitched a 56-page magnum opus, they're going to say no. Not even just if you're an indie creator. They're just usually going to say no. That's not what they have the money for. That's not where the attention is. They need to try out as many ideas as possible. So if you're trying to get a publisher right now and you're newer, pitch them 4 issues, pitch them a one shot. That's a single issue. Pitch them 6 issues as an arc, maybe. And if it sells well, maybe they'll ask you for more. Maybe you can set it up and you can do a second series. But you're going to have a hard time getting anything more than 4 to 6 pages or issues made at a publisher right now if you're an unknown. Even if you're somewhat known, it's still rough. You look at someone like Marvel or DC, they greenlight a lot of 4-issue, 6-issue arcs, maybe 10 if you're lucky, if you're a really big name, because that's just kind of standard for the industry. If it sells really well, and I talk about this with the Digger, if the Digger sells really well and Invader says, hey man, we're in for more, you'll get the Digger in space, you'll get the Digger 2 Electric Boogaloo, we'll sell out, we'll do more. But for the most part, 4 issues is what someone would sign up for from a book from me. And if that's what you want to pitch, that's kind of where you want to get started, is 4 to 6 issues. If you come in pitching 50 issues, be prepared for a no.
Okay. I was just curious because I actually never thought about that, was the fact that, like, what would be the optimal number or range to kind of approach a new work when it comes to, again, graphic novels or comic books and stuff like that. I have a question, if you are comfortable answering. Where in the Midwest are you located?
I'm in Michigan. I'm just outside of Flint. I won't give you my street address. If you look hard, you could probably find it, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm in Michigan, so the whole mitten thing. That's where I'm at. I'm in just outside of Flint, where the water is still a little bit more clean. It's not lead free, but there's less lead, so it's not so bad over here. I talk about being in the Midwest a lot because I don't travel, nor has anyone ever asked me to travel, really. So I talk about the Midwest. I'm like, that's what I'm aware of. If you start talking about geography outside of Michigan, I get lost very quickly. If I don't have that 4th grade map that has all the states and their capitals on it, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm getting more popular in Canada, and to me, it's that large blob that's very cold. They seem like they're very, very nice, and I like maple syrup, and I would love to visit there, but right now I'm still stuck in the mitten.
Hey, well, if you ever come down to the East Coast and do something like Dragon Con, since that's my backyard, I know that one's very big and pulls in a lot of people who do the graphic novels, the comics, and everything like that. Let me know, because that would be a lot of fun to see you
We'll
there.
party, and by party, I mean we'll go have a very respectable dinner and go to bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock, because as a dad, that's about where I'm at.
You may. On the other hand, like, I know a lot of the authors there, and they like to meet after hours, and the last sessions typically don't end until like 11.
That's crazy. I went out with a couple comic book writers right after the last big Motor City Comic Con here, and we shut down a little Korean restaurant, which like one of my favorites. It's I think we shut it down at like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, this is late for me. Normally I've put the kids to bed, I've had a drink or two, I can sit down and play Call of Duty for a little while. This is crazy. I'm not a nightlife guy. That is not how I exist. Normally I've read like 2 or 3 comic books, I've had my warm glass of milk and all of the other Midwest tropes. I when people are like, we're gonna go out, we're gonna do an after party, people are talking about doing that for some of the cons that I'm going to, and I'm like, you're going to the after party. I'm not. I've been married for 15 years. I don't go out at Saturday night.
You're the smart one. I'm the one who has like FOMO. It's like I'm a morning person by trade, but but if I go to an event and then there are people staying out, I'm like, but I want to know, I want to hang out, I want to be part of it. Don't leave me behind. So I get that. So
I love the idea of networking, but like that's too late. We can network in the morning. Like, let's go out. I'll take you out for brunch. Brunch is great. I'm not a nightlife guy. I don't drink. I don't party. I sleep. I love sleep. We can have like sleeping bags and sleep in the lobby and talk. Like that works for me. I'm not a no. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's all fair. That's all fair. But since we've hit the end of the hour, and I didn't ask this question, I will throw this one in. For you and for anybody else who's listening at the moment, is there any topic you wanted to cover that we haven't covered, or any questions you wanted to ask that you haven't had a chance to ask because it's that final time? So Throwing that.
Sure. I mean, if you ever need anything like comic book pitch, please let me know. I studied you coming into this. I forgot to send you any of my stuff, but I was like, oh, your stuff's cool. So like anything like that, please let me know if you ever want to talk about any adaptations or anything like that. That'd be a fun conversation to have. Number two, where do I collect my check for this? I was told that there would be something along those lines. We didn't agree on the amount of zeros, but anything like that would be wonderful. But other than that, I don't have any questions. Thank you so much for having me on, dude. This was a lot of fun. I tried to keep it not so blue. I tried to be an adult Mutant Ninja Turtle and not swear as much. I hope I fulfilled all the things we talked about. I didn't put my tuxedo on either. I came in my casual attire. This is my writing cardigan, not my party cardigan.
Yep. Yeah, I think we had the same kind of idea, because that was definitely what I've been vibing today. And I was just, it's again one of those just casual chats, and it's always kind of fun to meet other people in this space and learn other crafts. And I'm so fascinated because I don't know any author who would not, I know that's double negative there, be interested in adapting their work in various ways. And again, comic books, graphic novels, those are definitely one of those means that everybody talks about, and it's just so foreign that you're just like, how does this happen? Who does this? Who do we talk to? How? There's so much to learn here. So I really appreciate you coming on this past hour and telling me about the Digger, yourself, your whole craft, and just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
And we'll definitely keep in touch. And for everybody who's been hanging out this hour, I appreciate all you coming in, chiming in, asking, talking, chatting. But it is time for me to move on to my next project, because we both are working people, and this is also a work day. But thank you, everybody. Happy reading, and I will catch up to you guys the next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. I'm going to watch the old guy try to get out of here.